meeting. The time is now 3:22 in the afternoon. Bill, could you please do a roll call?
Sure. Linda Muller.
Here.
Giovanni Palladino.
Here.
Dean Tamburri.
Here.
Dr. Vincent Oda. Jeffrey Chris.
Here.
All 5 members are present. Also staff here, Bill Fioravanti, Marty Moraz, Kelly Riley, and Ethan Duckner. We have General Counsel Rudy Zoda here, our AV consultant, Dylan Burke from Acquisitions Marketing, and our State Monitor, Brian Sanders.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. The notice of this meeting was properly provided, so thank you very much. We have the minutes from our April 16th meeting of this year. Please note that the May and June governance committee meetings were canceled. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from April 16th.
Also move.
Thank you, Jeff. Need a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dean. Any discussions, corrections regarding the minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion. I will ask all in favor of accepting the minutes as they have been presented. Please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, policies and provisions. I know we're all tired of talking about them, but we're closer. And hopefully we'll have them in the form that is a whole lot easier to read. Substantively, there's not a lot of changes. That would be for this committee to make those decisions once they're presented. So Bill and I will finish these up as quickly as we can and have them available, hopefully, for the September meeting, so we have enough help with the typing of the policies. Thank you. New business, local labor policy, Bill.
Yeah, so local labor policy. And I'm really looking for discussion here. I do have this on the board, the IDA board meeting agenda as well, but it may not come out of this committee to go there. Basically, this came out of Anshin's second round of recommendations, where, as I say in my report, this really just came up because they are not only making sure that we're following every letter of the law and regulations, but following our own policies to the T. And in the labor policy, in addition to the local labor piece, which is really the thrust, the brunt of it, we also have some language in there about projects making every effort to source building materials from Orange County and the surrounding region. And Anshin's just looking for documentation of that for the project. What are they doing to show their best efforts in doing so? We had meetings, as a result of that, we had meetings with our local labor monitors, and they just raised concerns about it because in order to find out, to direct, say, general contractors or such to local sources of materials and such, they estimate we need to start with them before, maybe before they even apply to the IDA, because a lot of that is getting in the works where they're trying to source things. Giovanni probably would know better than anyone. So, and the monitors would charge us, or the client, much more, would be a significant number of hours to do that, to look at the documentation, to require that, go back and forth. And my concern, frankly, is that it's just going to become overly onerous on the project and expensive and be something that may drive someone away from considering the IDA, and maybe a project doesn't happen as a result. So I just want to get it out there and talk about it. I'd love Brian to have an opportunity to kind of give his perspective, since that's where it originated, and then just have a little discussion and see where we take it.
Sure.
Sure. So the idea, and other ideas to it, is to encourage local procurement where you can. And a lot of the stuff, especially on the construction side, is going to come in regionally or nationally, depending on what it is. So that's not going to be available. But where it is to try to encourage local procurement inside Orange County. And with that, usually it would be, if it's more expensive to buy it here, they don't have to. What we do is recommend that they track it. It's called good faith efforts, same way they would good faith efforts on the labor side, same way you would on MWBE, that they tried to buy locally, and either it wasn't economical to do that, or it's not available, and there's a form for it. On the construction side, we probably don't have local steel here, so it's going to come in from someplace else. So a lot of it is there. But if there is procurement that could be made or could be done locally with an Orange County business, it's to encourage that, as long as it's economically feasible for the project. So that's the reason for it. The idea also then is to make it as, Bill and I have talked about it, we don't want it to be overly burdensome on the paperwork side of it. We tried to buy, there's 3 vendors that sell it, either they don't have it, it's not economical, and we moved on, but they check a box that they tried to do it, and who they did. They reached out to whoever the purveyor of that material would be here, and more than recognize that your large-scale construction projects, a lot of it is not going to be manufactured and sold locally. It's going to be more of a regional or national construct then, but it's where there would be the availability.
And I do want to mention that this is part of our practice now, the monitors do have these conversations. I've witnessed them, but it's more a conversation. Where are you getting the steel? Have you tried so-and-so source? We have this available. The steel is one thing, and as you said, typically, and that's not from outside the area, but the erection of the steel is something that has come up, and we've given a waiver for because it's also, scarce. So we are doing it, but it's not as formal as Andrew would like to see, and with documentation of good faith efforts. That's the difference between what we're doing now and really
So
what they're
how
recommending.
formal does it need to be to satisfy Andrew?
Do you want to talk about some of the?
Sure,
good
so
faith
the idea would be if you're procuring you're finishing the build out here and the kitchen that we walk by, so you're gonna get kitchen cabinets or something like that. Is there a local vendor that sells them, that meets what you're looking for, and you reached out? So then the documentation just is reached out, spoke to Linda at the cabinet place, either has them or doesn't, or can't do it, either the quality or the price doesn't work, and that's it. It's not just like checked locally, yet there's some documentation as to who you reached out to. So what vendors in Orange County would sell those products? Now, on the construction side of it, the general contractors, the program managers, they know what you can and can't get locally. So it's just what would be available. Did you try to buy it? And then, recommendation. You don't want someone to pay extra for it. You don't want someone to try to hold a project hostage for it. So often you'll see that it's 10%. So we were able to buy it locally. We did, or it was more than 10%. We went outside because we were able to procure it at a cheaper price outside the county.
Gene, you have thoughts about this?
Mm-hmm. So, because this is the first thing that came to mind. Like this is our current policy. And I was just curious. Like our monitor says that we want money to do it, but it's part of it's in here. I can see where it's a little bit burdensome for them to do it. I would imagine a lot of it may not be able to be locally or whatever, or could we? I just made a note. Bill had said that they might not have done every last little detail in this, but they've definitely reached out. I was wondering if had conversations with the monitor and the contractors, etc. I was wondering, is any of that documented with the conversation of some of the items they're looking for? Is any of that documented at all? Have they done that?
That's where I think we fall short, where they're not documented. We're having conversations, kind of witness them, but maybe in some of their reports, but they're not collecting documentation of that faith efforts.
Right. In order to make it efficient, you could also put it in above a certain dollar amount. We want to, is it available above this dollar amount where we could procure in the county? So that would, that'd be the idea on it. Sensitive to, you don't want it to be more expensive, you don't want it to be overly bureaucratic and paperwork driven, but we tried to procure locally for obvious reasons, and we were able to, or we weren't. So is there an efficient way of being able to do that? And it's to offer Orange County businesses the first option at it. Very similar to like the labor piece of it. We pull from the county first or from the area first, and if they don't have the ability for whatever the reason is, then it goes outside of that. I think on the supply side, when you're looking at a large project, the majority of the products that are in this building that we're in right now are probably not sourced.
I would believe that as well. I don't know that for sure, but
the GCs would tell us,
right. But is there a way that they can just listen? The job is out there, right? I mean, you see the job ongoing, whatever. They know about it. I mean, just have them. Is there a group of suppliers that they can say, hey, listen, this job is going out. Contact the GC to see if anything's a fit, as opposed to. I could see how this could be burning somebody. I was on a couple of like a school board or whatever. They couldn't get 3 bids, fax bids from people. Like we can't like change something out because we need our procurement policy, which they wanted to follow, and it's just holding projects up, and that's the last thing we want to do here, correct? Is to hold anything up. I made some notes where I thought maybe instead of taking all of it out, just say, best efforts, et cetera, that, reach out or make it available that they can contact the GCs, whatever, if
I
they
mean,
have.
part of it may be, I mean, it would be a good resource to have. Does the county, does the IDA, or could they create, who are the wholesalers here in the county? So
Correct.
you would ultimately know, we're not talking hundreds of businesses, we're talking, it's on the construction side of it, what's available, and it's just, more trying to, if you could, encourage local procurement, encourage the local procurement, and if it's not available, then it's not available locally.
And I would imagine they would try to do it locally. I mean, for shipping costs or whatever else, they probably would want to do it locally if they could. I think we encourage them to do it. I mean, I think that might be.
I just don't know how you manage this with a general contractor. How do you tell a general contractor where he gets his material? He's already signed a contract with the developer. He's gonna tell you to pound salt.
So that's what I wanted Brian's perspective on also, is the timeline on this. You know the timeline well on a construction project. Where do we have to go relative to our timeline of the application process? Does it have to be before they even get before this
But
board?
not everything is bought up front, right? Maybe the big long lead items are, but like, how do you say drywall? Drywall is the last half of the project.
Okay.
They don't buy that at the front end. Paint, right? I mean, trim. I mean, this could get very cumbersome. I don't know how you would track it. So what is it that you would want locally sourced? Is it a dollar value? Like, you talk about steel. Steel's a
It's
behind-
every best effort to procure everything locally.
Well,
That's really
I
what
don't
it's
know
asking.
how you would do that with a general contractor.
So, we used federal dollars when I was at Health Center, and we had to use a federal procurement policy. And the federal procurement policy says it's best effort, best price, not lowest price, best price, that could be done at the rate and the timeline that was outlined in the contract between us and the GC.
I just don't know how you would do that with a
That-
private developer.
What I'm saying is the GC was a private guy, but the GC would say, I follow the procurement guidelines.
He did,
That's-
but did they give you a price and they held firm to that price? Or, you know what I mean, a general contractor, you give them a contract, and then the project's 2 years long, 2 years, you're a year or 2 year project, how do you go to him and say you have to buy, and just try to procure the drywall locally? I don't know how you would do that. I don't know what obligation a general contractor would have. Maybe you could make the overall developer, or
That's usually how it is. It would flow down from
I don't know.
whoever's the recipient of ultimately the pilot, any of the benefits that the idea gives. So then it flows down
They would
from
have to
them.
write that in their contract.
And that's usually what we would see, and here's what the policy is, no
So,
different than you would
Do you
on
have
the
an
labor
example of
side.
somebody else's policy?
I get it, so New Rochelle does it down there, goes into their requirements, and it's just, here's what they're looking for, and you can meet the requirements several different ways. If you have organized labor, how do you get to 15%? Did you buy local, did you hire local, was it organized labor? So there, it's a formula where they do it. So the idea would be, but to your point, it has to go into the contracts, because if you're just hiring at the GC level and down, it's, we're encouraging local procurement where you can. And a lot of that is, is there a wholesale sheetrock, distributor here in Orange County? Is the answer. And if the answer is yes, did you try to buy from them? If there's not one here in the county, then we move on, ultimately from there.
Now, a project like this, for example, this is not one of the larger ones we use,
Sure.
it's 50,000 square feet.
Yep.
How many different materials you're talking about? Thousands, and how much?
It's not like labor,
documentation
where you
you're
might
talking
have 6 or 7 labor silos. You have tens of thousands. When you talk about, I don't know, like you think about a school, the number of SKUs that go into that, it's thousands. Think of just a door, right? You've got the door hardware, you've got frames, those are 3 components, just in a piece, just in a
Yep.
door. I don't know how you do it, and as a developer to be comfortable, says, yes, my general contractor, he's gonna price it into the job, which is gonna drive the cost up for him. That's all and labor you can negotiate up front, because that's a conversation that's had really early, and long lead items like steel, something that's substantial, but is there a list of things? Is it a dollar value? Is it anything that exceeds $500,000 or $100,000? I think we have to set some sort of
I think
metric.
you would want that, because otherwise it would get.
Well, I understand, but to me, that kind of gets back to complicating it, right? I mean, what I would think we try to avoid is that it's local tax dollars, right? So it's part of their tax dollars. And if they're receiving sheetrock here, and 84 is right down there, and a load of sheetrock comes and said, I could have given that sheetrock, you know, I could have sold that sheetrock. I would prefer that they had gotten the business. I mean, it's in their, you know, in their area and whatever else. So, can it be as simple as make best effort and communicate with the local, like you said, the wholesalers, and say, listen, here's the job. Contact them and see, put this thing together. You know, if they can, they can. So you must have, you know, buyers, I would imagine, or if that's the correct word for it. But once you have all in there, then people are calling around looking for prices for the doors. I imagine the lead time on some of these doors and door
Well, I
frames.
can tell you for, like, our company, we have national accounts, we don't buy them. We buy directly from Mannington or from Sherwin-Williams directly, and then they'll decide which distributor. You know, especially develop, maybe not ones or twos, but for us it's a little different.
Right, so just for example, say 84 Rumpelhouse Street, right? So it's a, you may call it, if they carry Sherwin-Williams, like you had said, even the national, like I said, okay, pick it up down here, or they'll deliver it, but that's up to them. I mean, it's up to, you're purchasing it from them, but it goes, I don't know.
I think it would be really tough to manage.
Okay.
The legal numbers feel the same way.
Yeah, I agree with both Dean and Giovanni that there's just so many pieces and documenting it back through. We have the language in here now that says they need to do their best to buy locally, to track it, right?
That's the challenge, because then it just ends. It's do your best. And there's no definition of it, there's no tracking of it. So you currently have a policy that does that, that says that, and then it just kind of, and it also just ends. You know, you're just putting, you know, you're putting it out there. And it could be something as simple as, you know, to the business community, who are the wholesalers, and then they, you know, when a project's that, here's folks that are in business, you know, did you reach out to?
Right.
You don't want to get down into, you know, where the doorknob's coming from.
Correct, and I think part of the other problem is that we're talking about, because of the scope of our project, the smaller ones, you probably don't have to tell them, they're doing it anyway.
Yep.
Right? The larger ones, they can't do it. So how do we get this thing to come together? You know, somebody is building a small, like, for example, I'm sure the hotels, whatever, they're probably doing some things locally if they can, you know, but some of the smaller jobs, but the larger jobs is gonna be that much more difficult. So how do we get it to go together? I guess is the challenge that we have, trying to support the local people that are here for the taxes.
You know, so it's in the policy, and I don't know if anybody's even ever complained that they didn't, you know, get to sell to a project or that. So the challenge that we have is, it's in the policy, so do you take it out and just do away with it, then you have the optics that you're not encouraged buying it locally. And if you are gonna keep something in, how do you balance that where it's not labor intense? And if you're, you know, and if you've got a contract that someone's buying, you know, from a national supplier of it, then does that get automatically waive it because of the buying power that size company would have to be able to do it? Because you're not going to send them to 84 to buy it when they're buying direct from, you know, Firestone,
Do we track it now,
Sherwin-Williams,
then?
or
Do
whoever.
we track this now, material? Or is it
We just have conversations, like I said, and I know it's made a difference at times. I remember Royal Wine, this is one of the ones I witnessed, where they were needed some blasting, and they were looking all outside the area, and it was hard to find someone. I remember Felonzer, in this case, recommended that we try Roars, or I think we talked about it at the time. So there are some examples where they've actually pivoted and used some local vendors that they weren't aware of or something like that. But that's in the process, that's later stage, not necessarily, but it's not things that were procured up front, obviously. So it's as it's going, where there's an opportunity still to you know, recommend some other sources for them to go
So
to.
it's more like a best practice, not necessarily a requirement.
Well, I guess that's how, I think that's Brian's point, that's how we're
It's
handling it.
currently in the policy, so right now what you have, there's not a way to check it, you know, so you've got it in that you're doing it, you know, so do you reduce it and just say that, you know, the IDA wants to support local businesses like through a local chamber, and we encourage it, you know, what are the best practices, how do you define that, you know, and break that out. I think the definition ultimately has to be some sort of documentation, and to that, you'd have to have some dollar amounts on it, or you
pull your hair out.
And it's specific to the county, not to the region, right? Like labor's regional, right? It's like Hudson Valley.
It is eight county region.
Is the material the same way?
I'll be honest.
Orange County and the surrounding counties.
I would, it's probably the same way, but my my suggestion is maybe keep, you know, the portion where it says, you know, make best effort, et cetera. Maybe take out the section where it says, you know, they have to, keep it in the binder and in comparisons and all that stuff, and it's like a.
But you understand Angie's point that they're saying it's in the policy and best efforts, it's kind of just a recommendation
No, I
otherwise,
understand,
right?
but there's a lot of things, you know what I'm saying, like a, what is it, like a feel-good type, but I don't know what to say, but I also think though, on page 7 though, I don't see why we couldn't leave in the contact information for the representative, so this way, if somebody has a question, they can contact him, you know?
Cause these lineouts are ones we're considering putting back in.
No,
No,
take it.
Okay, they're in there now.
All the verbiage you see is in it, the
Oh,
lines,
okay.
the cross out is what I'm suggesting removing
Right.
for these reasons, or at least discussing.
Including
Bill,
the records.
There was a question that we were at, that I think you asked, is have we had any complaints from local vendors who said, why didn't you call me?
I have not received any, but I'm not sure if the IDA did before. I remember one of the monitoring firms that we hired had questioned it, because the IDA had used an excellent monitoring firm out of Rochester, and that was, they complained about that, but no, I haven't heard anything from any local vendors, I have not in my time.
Council have any recommendations?
Labor policies that I've worked with are only labor, not materials. Materials are hard to track. The way it's written now is toothless. It says try your best, but there's no standard that you would fail or not comply with. It's hard to even go to a job site and find out where the materials came from. And I think also we need to be very careful with directing projects to different suppliers or wholesalers. We're not supposed to guide any applicants to certain contractors or vendors. That's a large problem. If you still want to suggest to people to buy locally, that's great, but there is no or else clause involved. And I think I agree with what Dean had said about leaving that part in and taking out the portion regarding keeping binders and records. And with respect to the change on the second page, it's talking about construction contracts. It's not even necessarily talking about materials. And I don't see if there's a need to take that out either.
Guys, just if somebody wants to contact, they can contact, they can meet a price, they can meet a price, if they can't, if they don't have the information, but it's just information in there, I don't think that's a burden to them. And then take out the portion that's burdensome, but yet, hopefully try to promote, hopefully.
I mean, is there a way that we can say something like to encourage, working with local businesses? We encourage the applicant to connect with the Orange County Partnership, the local Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I don't know how we're supposed to monitor all that.
We have tried to refer them to that, Construction Contractors Associations and with that and labor side as
They
well.
just list them, but I mean.
So that we're not
Right.
directly sourcing.
Doing what we're, yes, exactly,
Referring.
that would be a problem too.
So then, guys, I mean, to bring all this together, I think if we, is it the second sentence, so leave, I know it's crossed out, but leave the first sentence and start where it says, take out from applicants down to, any documents, solicitations and contracts, take that portion out. and leave the rest? Is that something that would, like, I know it doesn't have any teeth or whatever, but, at least we're recommending people to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge that you have is you got a policy that there's no way to test back to. So we either change the policy or make
So-
it just as a recommendation, and that's what's driving this.
So-
Because at some point, you know, the AOB comes in and it's gonna audit, and that's gonna be the question on it, and you have this open-ended, you don't have the ability to track it.
So you're saying you can't even suggest it in the policy, in the policy, then you're saying, or should?
No, I think you can suggest
Okay.
it. You can suggest, we suggest, we recommend whatever the proper wording is, local procurement. As to, when and where available, however you're going to do that. But I
That would be
wouldn't,
my
I mean, I
suggestion.
wouldn't envision that you're gonna have someone ask for a waiver, because they have to buy it, or they buy it some other way. I think you wanna have it worded where you're encouraging to do it, and, you're not putting yourself in the middle of a dispute.
Do you have
I'm
any
so-
thoughts about that?
I don't know. For me, it's in our policy, but I just don't know how it's enforceable, or even what's the point of it being in the policy. I just don't know how we would even track it. And, a lot of this purchasing special materials done on a lower level, most people probably don't even know there's a policy in place. I don't know.
You did reference that before. I will say that that's one of the reasons we have a what do I call it, kind of kickoff meeting, where I'm present, and because oftentimes the people that come before us asking for these incentives, they're certainly not the GC, or a project manager. So I just want to make sure that message that, yeah, you may not have signed it, and you're not getting into it, but the project is, so that means you have to carry it out. So we do pass that along, but a lot of times things are in place, things are in motion. Sourcing, we seem to be able to, it's understood on the labor piece, they seem to, fly up right off the bat. The sourcing seems to be a little tougher on the front. So I think we pass it along, and they have to understand that they're committed to it, but the enforcement piece also.
I suggest we look at some language that maybe we could consider with the encouragement, suggestion of using local, and not have it be a requirement, because we can't track it easily in my mind, and discuss it at our next governance committee meeting.
Sure.
I'd like to hear if there's other IDAs that are doing it.
Right, that too.
Wonder if you could help us with that, Ron.
Yep.
That we
Provide
can
some
understand how they're
policies, some
doing it.
verbiage.
Also, if council can shed any light, I mean, it doesn't seem, it's nebulous at best about this whole thing, about what would happen if somebody's not compliant. So recommending or saying, at a recommendation, do we still need to have proof that they did if we simply recommended you use local when and wherever possible?
Because that's the whole challenge, because what you have right now, there's no way, it just
Right.
says you have to do it, and it just ends.
But what we have now has no threshold of how much
Right.
materials need to be local. So
Yeah, but if
there's
you
no
put-
way that you can not comply with it the way it is now.
Right, so I'm saying we have to change the policy, that's clear, but how do we write the policy so that we aren't back talking about this 6 months from now? If we say 15% of the project's gotta be sourced locally, and it's not possible to source it, then you've gotta come back for a waiver, and then we have to grant a waiver. So how do we simply say, look, this is Orange County, if you want corn, just go pick it outside, because it's really available pretty easy, but you're not gonna get steel here, you're not gonna get, you people know better than anybody else how you have to contract for supplies. Then how do we say, when you can, if it makes sense, we encourage you to shop local.
Yeah.
But if you can't, what are we gonna do? What teeth do you wanna stick in this? What policy do we wanna place to make somebody, if they didn't want to comply with the 15% and they didn't ask for a waiver? I don't wanna put more roadblocks into trying to connect business to Orange County. I wanna make this seamless and let people understand what the expectations are. And if this policy doesn't meet the requirements for what they need to do to say, yes, we were compliant with the policy, then we need to change the policy. Then, to your point, we just need we need to know what other folks are doing.
Like I said, the Rockland labor policy is a labor policy.
not
It's not a material policy.
Is there any material policy that they have?
I'll make the motion to take it out.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We got a second. Any other, we've been discussing, so is there any other further discussion?
I just would like to ask, I'm sorry, Dean, if you would want, to what you said a minute ago, just ask, is there any other information you'd like? Would you like to see other policies? Would you like to see some suggested language before you consider it fully?
With Jeff?
I just wanted to put that.
Yeah, the only thing, I just wish we could just leave it as encourage them to, like we have it in there, just encourage
It's
them
gonna
to.
leave us open, I think, to whatever interpretation of somebody coming in to audit us. I believe that if Rockland County, who is our neighbor, doesn't have it in their policies, we're right next to them, why not remove it and just have it as a labor policy? So we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion, I'll call the question, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
All right.
Any objections, abstentions?
Object.
You object, we have one objection, and 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor of removing it, so we'll remove it from the policy.
And that would be a recommendation to the board.
To the board, yes. And we can make that recommendation today?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on the agenda.
Okay.
Before you, we have to do the ethics officer, and then I have one other item. Can I
Fee-
attach-
Fee schedule?
Fee schedule,
we
we
have.
didn't do that yet.
Okay, sorry.
And listen, they'll do the same thing, because it's obviously on both
Yeah.
agendas.
Yeah.
We just did that.
Yeah, I thought we
could
did
do it
that.
again.
For what?
But are there
Fee
different
schedule?
fees
What we did was fee
involved with
schedule.
It's the
IDA?
same fee schedule, but
Okay.
only the bonds fees
Apply here.
apply to OCFC. Here, it's pilot sales tax exemption.
Everything else.
Can you briefly highlight what changes were suggested? So just having trouble getting my hands around.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
probably could have done a comparison thing. I did that, at the end, practically see how the numbers work out, but I took them a little side by side. On page, I'm sure I have the right page number, it's page 10, right? Packet, the page number to the right.
Mhm.
That's where you see for projects that include pilots, and it's all on a different sector basis, which we took out. But you see the calculation is oftentimes 1% of the first $2 million of the project budget, and then after that, 0.5%, or in the case of warehouses, it's 1% of the whole project cost. Going over to the proposed schedule, get the right page.
Is that page 20, the last page?
Page, I'm looking at page 16. Oh, confuse myself here. Pilots. Page 14. Second paragraph from the top, fee schedule shall be 1% of the aggregate amount of pilot payments. Adding up all the pilot payments, 1% of that rather than the project cost. This is one of the things I did want to discuss, though it does have a cap on it, not to exceed $400,000. We have some sizable projects that, the fee would be beyond that, and I don't know that it's a terrible thing. That was one thing that I included in here that I did want to have some discussion if we want to cap that. We've had some projects recently that would exceed that. But that's where it talks about pilots, sales tax exemption.
So that caps the benefit? Or, no, the fee?
The fee.
Fee.
Okay.
And on sales tax, so if there's no pilot involved, on the original one, it's the bottom of page 9, closing fee, sales tax exemption, 1% of the total benefit by the IDA, and mortgage reporting tax, that is. And in the new policy, it's page 13, where it is a percentage of the cost of the project, that is subject to sales tax, just that portion of it, 0.5%, and over $4 million, 0.25%. And again, this is, in talking to Rockland, this has worked well for them, and council agrees.
Do
So that's
other
their-
IDAs cap the pilot fee?
Uh,
I'm not sure though, that's a good question. Rockland does, this is.
And that's something that we've only instituted in the last year, or actually last probably.
Do you recall really what the impetus for that was? Why that was just added?
Just because there are so many different formulas, it's difficult to determine what benefit an applicant's gonna get from the pilot. If it's an existing building and there's a reduction in taxes, that's easy to figure out. If it's a newly constructed building, it's more complicated to figure out what benefit they're receiving from the pilot program. So, just to make it one formula and reduce any uncertainty, they decided to make it 1% of the total of all the pilot payments over the life of the agreement. That may artificially work to have the applicant seek a shorter length pilot. And on those large projects where the pilot payments are substantial, the IDA wanted to put a cap in just so the fees weren't overly onerous on the applicant.
I'm not sure I'm ready to make a vote on that today. I'd like to I didn't fully appreciate the cap.
Yeah.
One recommendation on the cap, if you put it in, you don't have the ability to go over the straight percentage, at least would give the board, you could always set it at the application size. If you take, Amazon or something like that, the mega project, you don't have a cap, but ultimately during negotiations, if you wanted to reduce it.
Yeah, I like that better.
I mean, by having the cap there, it just, I think it limits you. And taking it off gives the entity the ability to negotiate.
So I think we, to Jeff's point, I think we need to look at this, and table this until the next meeting in
Okay.
September. And probably side by side, this has been a little
Yeah,
jumpy to try
it
to
is.
get back and forth.
No, you're absolutely right. I'll put all the side-by-side comparison on.
Beautiful, that would help. Nice.
Okay, so just to recap where we are. So the local labor policy is going to be just a local labor policy. Our recommendation to the board is that we're gonna drop all the material pieces, correct?
That's the recommendation.
All right, and that's the recommendation to the board for their approval. And then on the fee schedule, we have nothing to move until we review this a little bit better.
Table is still next one.
So we have something to move from the funding corporation. Do we wanna move that or not move that to the board and put it all in one package?
It's all the same conversation, fee schedule, so I think that for both agencies, it goes to the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the fee schedule that we need to discuss since we're gonna table everything?
Not this one, right.
Okay, thank you. And, the ethics officer.
Brian, do you mind if I ask you to give a little background on the ethics officer, please?
Sure. So when we're talking about it, the idea would be to have an ethics officer, called out by position or by title, and then also to have a backup if that person had a conflict and couldn't do it. So when we were talking, you'd have kind of three options. I think you have the chair, outside counsel, or the executive director. I think would be the three titles you could pick from. Ultimately there, but I think you should call somebody out as the ethics officer if someone wanted to raise an issue and you needed something there and someone wanted to do it, whether it was confidential or not. And then if ultimately that person seemed to, it was the appearance that that person could have a conflict, who would be the backup person to that? But to have a person in the position where that would ultimately come to if someone wanted to raise an issue.
Now, this isn't in our bylaws. Where does this kind of come from? Is this just best practice?
Best practice on the organizational side of it, that there would be an ethics officer where if someone wanted to make a complaint, make an issue, or raise an issue, who that ultimately goes to. I think the obvious would be those three positions, but if someone wanted to ask a question or if they thought there was conflict, who would they bring that to? So you're calling on someone.
That's not Christmas.
No, it's not in the bylaws.
That was my first thought.
No.
That to be put in, I guess, who the board makes a recommendation.
Well, for me, I would say the body of full governance of this organization is the board, correct?
Sure.
So, I mean, you could have steps, but we have a very small staff. So I would say it should go to the board chair, in my opinion. You've got really no skin in the game. And if there's a question that needs to come up, whether it be about staff or about fellow board members, I think the chair, regardless of who's in that position, should be that person.
And if there's a conflict, general counsel it goes to, that's one of the
If
things.
they go to general counsel, or, I would have no problem if it, you've got governance that sits right here. I mean, that's our job, it's governance and
And
making
it could
sure
be you,
all
as the chair
policies.
of governance, and someone thought,
A secondary, I mean, you certainly could appoint, not necessarily me, but the chair, whoever the chair is of the governance committee, considering that that's what this committee does.
As a primary.
Or
the
secondary, you could be primary and then the chair of the governance committee.
I
If
kinda
you
like
had-
that.
If you were
Yeah.
conflicted, then it could, I mean, I don't know your thoughts, counsel?
When we discussed this earlier, we thought that the executive officer of the IDA might be the better choice to be the ethics officer, but
I have a-
we understand that all
Things
All
happen
are
through the
valid.
board. I would never have, we didn't have a thing called an ethics officer, we had a compliance officer, and it could not, never could be the CEO or the CFO, because those are the two biggest challenges that you would have in compliance. I would just simply say, as a paid employee, Bill reports to the board, that's our responsibility. And if there were to be a complaint against Bill, I think it will happen, or if there's another staff member who has a complaint, to direct it directly to the board. And the board, in its great wisdom, would investigate appropriately and make a recommendation and keep, as long as the CEO is not the named member, keep the CEO apprised of the investigation. But I wouldn't be comfortable there, no offense.
No, I'm saying. You okay with that?
I was gonna say, what is your comments from that? I mean, she just said made sense to me, but I mean, I don't know if there's something I'm missing.
We certainly understand that the three options that Brian laid out are all equally valid and excellent choices. Stylistically, I guess, we thought it would be better not to have the chairperson, but it's all equal as far as.
So if you're not comfortable with, is there a reason why stylistically you're not comfortable with the chair?
I don't know what that means.
I'm
I'm glad you said, 'cause I was gonna, just before you chimed in, I said, what does that mean? I made it just.
We just, I guess, felt that the executive officer is involved in more of the day-to-day workings and is an employee, so it's his full-time job, he's always here on it. We have no qualms with having the chairman.
I mean, if we're not comfortable with the chair, make the chair of the governance committee. I mean, I truthfully, in my humble opinion, if it's a member of the board who are non-compensated, we don't get paid to do our job, how we would review policies and procedures, as far as I'm concerned, would not be changed at all. Just following the policy, it's real simple, as you've said 1,000 times, if it's in the policy, it's in the policy, if it's not, it's not. So I like to remove that responsibility from Bill. It would never have come to me. It would go from the compliance officer directly to the board, right past me. And that's the way it should be. The chief executive officer should not be the one who's responsible, that could put a barrier between staff or board members, right? Because they're paid and we are the entity that is responsible for everything that happens within this organization. So my voice would be, a member of the board would be the person to be the ethics officer.
I'm good with that.
Okay. So we need a motion, we have to do this, official
Yeah.
recommendation to the board.
And to the board, exactly.
Well, so kind of, we're usually make a change in the,
We have to change the bylaws, we have to add it to the bylaws since it doesn't sit in there now.
so it would be a motion to, on the bylaws to reflect this.
Correct.
Do we need
Do
to just
we-
bring that back with the language in the
Do we need
proposed
it,
bylaws?
do we have any, I can't remember, the bylaws is to say we have a 30-day stay to review those recommendation changes before we vote?
I'm sure of that.
I don't recall that.
No, we don't have that?
I don't recall that.
All right, well, my opinion would be is if we're okay with this, is that we, to your point, we write what the recommendation to alter the bylaws, which we'll need to do, and present it at the next meeting.
Good with that.
All right, then are we clear that we're going to have the first person of contact would be the board chair? Should the board chair be conflicted or not available, then it would be the chair of the governance committee.
I'm fine with that.
We're good?
I'm fine with that.
And I'm fine, with it. There's no voting on that at all, as long as we approve the.
Right, well, we gotta put the
Right,
language
right.
together.
Put the
so
language in, we approve it,
next-
it's done.
Well, we have to make
Those
the
are-
recommendation.
I understand that, so
Yeah.
those
Voted on by the board.
Yep,
Yeah.
so next month we'll have I'll draft language for that.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Thanks, Doug.
A few of these have to carry over to next month.
Did you have
No.
something else?
No, because we don't have.
You were saying yes.
Correct, but we recommend it.
Oh.
Okay, so we talked about, we got this done, we got this is tabled, fee schedule is tabled, next meeting, the ethics officer is tabled, next meeting. Is there anything else that needs to come before the body for discussion?
Yes, I just want to ask council, I took something off the agenda there that I wanted to have. Any reason we can't add it and discuss it now?
I don't believe so. I'm not certain what type of matter it is.
Yeah, sorry, it's discussion of, I wanted to at least start the discussion about recapture of Glen Arden. So I know Lino's more involved in that one. We've had a number of conversations. May I?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a project in Goshen, Glen Arden, that.
Bill,
It's
it's
two
when
words.
you're gonna
Bill,
do
yes, it's
executive
one
session.
is-
I think we talked,
We did.
Yes.
That's it.
I believe you wanted to do this in executive session.
We absolutely did.
For attorney-client privilege.
Yes.
Before we negotiate it live.
So we need a motion to do
How
that.
critical is that this month?
I just wanna, it's been in our recommendations from Anshin, and it's been ongoing. It's something that I don't frankly see us pursuing recapture yet, because there's something in motion, but I think we need to talk about it, not just because Anshin raises it, but it's
So
something
we need a motion to go into executive session?
We do.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Dean, thank you. Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's go into executive. We go,
Okay.
yes, we're all out, we're out. We're in again. Okay.
You're on.
All right, I don't believe there's anything else that needs to come before this committee, so I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
We took no action.
Yeah, maybe I should clarify that, definitely.
No action.
We were in executive session, we took no
No,
action.
no action.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, second. Thank you, Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,